They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
I want to make it clear that the views expressed by our hosts are not considered the official stance of MBR Views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Tracer Round Podcast. A tracer round is a type of ammunition designed to help visually track the path of rounds fired. Tracers show where you need to adjust or redirect fire. Join Army veteran Sergeant First Class Terry Lynch for Tracer Rounds, the first ever podcast of its type. Whether it be military, music, sports, politics, education, relationships, or gender issues, no target is off limits or out of bounds. Are you on target? Does your fire need to be recalibrated? Whether you adjust fire or fire for effect, tune in to Tracer Rounds, where the range is always open and there are rounds going down range.
Hi, welcome to Tracer Rounds, and I'm Terry, your host. And tonight I have a special guest with me, Noah Peterson, who is a Marine veteran and jazz musician. Welcome, Noah.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on your show, Terry. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited, and I'm really excited because I'm also a saxophonist. I wouldn't say I'm good, but I would say that I've played a long time, and I'm really I'm passionate about the saxophone. So I want to know from you, I want to hear everything, but I want to know from you, what saxophones do you typically play, and do you play a variety, or do you just play one in general?
All right, so I just play alto. I used to play more. I used to play them all, but you know, after a while, when you start bringing them to gigs, it's a lot of stuff to bring. And I'm not a big guy. I'm only like 5'7", 5'8", and I saw a picture of myself playing a tenor once, and I thought, this just looks ridiculous. So I just stopped it strictly out of vanity.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, so we talked a little bit before the show, and I know you're a Marine veteran, and so I want to kind of hear about what you did in the Marines. I want to hear about your service. I want to hear just a little bit about your biggest adventure in the Marines and that type of thing before we get into some other topics.
All right, so I was a 55-37, which everyone goes, what's that? Unless you're a 55, exactly. Whatever, you don't know. So that's the official title is Marine Corps Bandsman Saxophonist. So I actually was in the United States Marine Corps Field Band. I was at 29 Palms from, I think, 92 to 94. So at that time, you know, of course, it was immediately after post-Gulf, so the drawdown was huge. They were just kicking people out left and right. And our band was on the chopping block for budget cuts. It had recently been decommissioned from being a drum bugle corps to being a half-strength band. So normally a Marine band, at least at the time, it was 50 enlisted, 1 officer. So it was 51 supposed to complement. I think we were at 24. So I'd have to say the biggest adventure is just working nonstop. We would do 80, 90, 100, 110-hour weeks. We would work 3, 4 months without a day off. It was just go all the time and never stop. So I had particular insight into that because, everyone has to do 3 or 4 jobs, especially when you're such a small unit. And part of my job was being in the office, and I kept the logs. And so I can tell you for a fact that we traveled, I think, in the first year I was there, we traveled about 62,000 miles and played 410 shows in 11 months. And in the second year I was there, we traveled 80,000 miles and played 424 shows in 11 months. So
That's
yeah,
crazy.
that was all an adventure. It was nuts.
Right? What type of
Uh,
shows would you play? I mean, like what events would you play?
Everything. So we would do school functions, change of commands, morning colors, evening colors, anything military, E-club parties, officer club parties. Anytime the general had a bunch of mucky mucks in, we would be there. We would do all kinds of civilian stuff as well. Any type of thing that had a parade within our particular area, we would go do the parade. One particularly fun thing that we got to do was the Dakowitz Conference, which is the Defense Armed Committee for Women in the Service. So that was like 92 or 93. We performed for all field grade officers and higher in all 4 branches of the military. And that was at the Palm Springs Museum of Modern Art. Pretty special night, pretty funny night. I won't go into the stories, but yeah, you're walking around with all the biggest, baddest females in the Army, the Air Force, and Marine Corps, and the Navy, and it was kind of cool. You're like, it's a different thing when you're in the band because you're around so much and so many different things and so many different environments. Like there were a ton of lobbyists there. There was a ton of TV there. There was a bunch of things going on. And when you're, 19 or 20 and just a dumb kid from Montana like me, it's like you have no idea. And you're talking to 2 guys that, later on you learn, they work for huge book publishers and they're lobbying for millions or billions of dollars and they're there trying to get business done. And you're just trying not to say anything on TV that's going to, get you NJP'd the next day.
Right? You're just trying to make sure you cover your bases and don't say anything that's going to cause trouble for anybody, especially you.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You're like, yes or no questions only, please.
Right. Yeah, because you don't want to incriminate yourself. So what started you in music? I mean, did you start as a kid or did your parents encourage it, or like how did you get started in music or playing saxophone?
Well, my everybody in my family plays an instrument. My father was a band director, and my mom played sax, my dad played sax, my grandfather played sax. So there was a bunch of that. But I started off on trumpet because my 2 brothers were trumpet players, and I wanted to be like my brothers. But much like I'm not like my brothers, one went to the Army, one went to the Navy, I went to the Marine Corps. So of course I couldn't be like them. I had to do something different and special. So I picked up the saxophone instead.
Nice. Wow, that's the service is really great. So did your brothers go into service playing instruments too, or did they do something else?
No, my middle brother Josh, he thought he was going in to be an army chaplain, ended up being a tank mechanic. And right, I mean, doesn't get any better than that. And then my eldest brother Travis, he went to the Navy as a corpsman. Did first half his career on the green side, got his commission, ended up becoming an officer, became a nurse, and finished off and did, I think, 31 or 32 years in Navy medicine. And he just retired earlier, or I guess last year.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a legacy of service your family has.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great. It's cool.
Right. What's your favorite song to play on the saxophone?
Oof. Well, it's definitely something I wrote. That's for sure. I've read a lot of songs. There's a couple I like for different times. I'd have to say probably most of all is a ballad I wrote called "Coming Home to You."
Nice. That sounds good. So is it like slow? Is it jazzy? What type of music would you say it is? How would you classify the genre of it?
It's a jazz ballad for sure. I wrote it in 2007. I had where I was living at the time was very much a music town, so there was a lot of work to be had. So I'm probably playing 20, 25, 30 shows a month. And for this, it had been going well. I was doing very well. I was probably playing, 260, 270, 280 shows a year. And like bar shows, backgrounds, holidays, lunches, that kind of stuff. Not like big, not like arenas or anything, just casual musician work. But I remember this particular month, I never saw my wife. Like we just she was basically a maid, right? Doing all the dishes, keeping me fed, keeping the laundry, we'd see each other coming and going from bed. That was about it. And but every night I'd come home and she'd have this plate of food available for me, and I was coming home from this I had this residency at this Irish bar. And it always ended at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd stay up all night playing poker afterwards. So sometimes I'd come in at like 5 o'clock in the morning, stinking like scotch and cigarettes. And she'd be, the porch lights on, the food's there, and she's like, "Hey, throw your stinky cigarette smelling clothes in the wash and come to bed." And so I don't know. I just I had this thought in my mind where it's awesome, but it's sad, but it's awesome, but it's sad. So that's what that tune is. It's awesome, but it's sad, and it's about that.
Nice. Wow. Well, I love that story. I bet she loves it too. I bet she loves the song.
She does.
Yeah, it's always better when there's a story behind the song. I think that's me personally, because like music rules my life pretty much. And so somebody says something to me and then I repeat it because it's out of a song. So I always repeat the rest of the words to the song, because to me, everything relates back to music and to a feeling and to like just a connection with the art form, I think. That's just me personally. So we
I
talked a little
agree.
bit
I like your
about.
personal thoughts.
Thank you. So we talked about that you released some music of your own and that you are coming out with a new collection of songs.
I do. Yeah, I actually have an album coming out called "Coming Home to You." It's gonna feature that song "Pretty Rare," but or pretty forefront. But just kind of leading up to that, I've put out a couple of singles, and one that we've kind of queued up that we're gonna play here in a minute is one called "Baby It's All Right," which also is a song I wrote for my wife. But this one was not quite as sweet. It's a little more humorous. There are words to it, but this is just the instrumental version, which is it's just kind of it's like a East Texas, Southern Louisiana kind of blues. It's just fun. It's a groover. It just swings real hard. Just kind of digs in, and it's just it's kind of one of those little BB King kind of happy blues kind of thing. So it's just a down home foot stomper. I love it. But I wrote it. Uh, and the words are "Baby it's all right, baby it's all right," and it just kind of talks
Mhm.
about her talking and fretting and just worrying about things that you just don't need to worry about too much for. I'll probably do a vocal version of it at some point, but I'm not much of a singer, and I'm decent on the sax, so it's much better I do it that
I
way.
I think you're more than decent on the saxophone. Yeah, I've heard some music, so we are going to play it here in just a few minutes. But I wanted to ask you about the video that goes along with the music. Where did the cartoon come into play?
So I've got a pretty huge YouTube channel. Not in terms of subscribers, but in terms of content. It's got to be like 1,300 videos on there, and there's a bunch of different things on there. But one of the things I like to do is cobble together public domain footage. So I'll just find spots where I can, grab some pretty interesting little things. So I grabbed this cartoon that was available, and I thought it was kind of worked in with the theme of the song. Is that you have this disgruntled employee who's painting dolls, and then he later figures out how much the guy who he's working for is selling the dolls for, and he wants more money. But the whole thing is, it all kind of has to work together, and you kind of again fretting over nothing, and maybe it's all right. So that's kind of where I got that from. And It's not a perfect sync, but it's pretty good. I thought it kind of told the story well enough for people to kind of get the gist and the point. And it's it's some of that kind of classic older footage from the 50s. Looks like something you'd see, like an old Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Well, we're going to see it now. So we're going to go to break real quick. We're going to see the video and hear Noah's music to Baby It's All Right.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds, where veterans have a voice on MBR, and we've got a special guest in studio today. We've got Noah Peterson, who is a jazz musician and a man after my own heart because he loves saxophone. And I just heard a saxophone on the way over here, actually, to the studio. I heard Whitney Houston's song, All the Man I Need, and it has a great saxophone solo in it. Who would have thought? I wouldn't have thought it did, but I listened and I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I'm in heaven. I just heard a good sax, and I just heard one now too. So I appreciate your music. But I wanted to ask a couple of things about your music. Have you composed for anybody else, or do you just compose for yourself, or what normally do you do when you're thinking about new music?
Wow, that's a big question.
Sorry.
I do write for other people. I do write for other projects. I collaborate with a bunch of people, and once in a blue moon, I'll get commissioned to write something, and I have been awarded a couple of grants to write music. So there's no stone I will not unturn to go and do this. I love writing. I love making. I love creating this kind of stuff. So I'm very much into it, and I'm very much into finding ways to be funded to do it. So there's a lot of ways to go about that. So yeah, I do jazz and poetry. I've done a little bit of hip hop. I've done a little bit of electro cumbia. I've done a lot of electronic music. I do a lot of dub. I've done some reggae, a lot of jazz, kind of some pop, some rock, some other things. So there's, yeah, I'm into just about everything.
That sounds like me because I'm just about any genre of music. Like it's cool with me. Maybe not opera though. I'm not sure about that. But everything else is cool with me. Like reggae, like jazz, like R&B, hip hop, rock, you name it, it's probably okay. Good music is good music, doesn't matter the genre.
You know,
So I wanted to ask, go ahead.
no, go. I was going to say, there's a great quote by Duke Ellington, and Duke Ellington, of course, is considered one of the masters of the big band genre, a genius composer, a fabulous player, kind of everything that he ever did. But he had a couple of great quotes, and one of my favorites from him is, "If it sounds good, it is good."
Exactly. I agree 100%. He was right on target for sure. Um, so I was going to ask, who is like, if you were thinking about a musical idol, who would that be for you? Like, who do you look up to? Man, they make some good music, or man, I want to replicate that sound, or man, like his music just has the message that just soothes the soul.
You know, being a guy from the '70s from Montana, I'm a rock and roll guy. Yeah, I'm a jazz musician, but deep in my heart, I'm a rock and roll guitarist. And I'm not gonna say what you think I'm gonna say. Like George Thorogood, to me, is kind of it. Like I loved all those
Okay.
records from when he started off in '78 on Rhino Records to everything that he did after that, long before Bad to the Bone came out, and he's just doing all those great '60s things, but he's just kind of doing that with that Boston attitude and just what he's doing, just grinding that big old dobro he's playing all the time. So for me, George Thorogood was kind of one of my pinnacle cats. And I know he's not the
Nice.
best. He's not the
I think
greatest singer. He's not
right.
the greatest songwriter. But just in terms of the bands that he puts together and those records that he puts out, I just love it. I love it all, top to bottom.
Sounds good to me. He's great. So I know that we talked a little bit about that you do stuff for other people, but you have a production company. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. That's that kind of has two sides to it. One's a record label side where I got probably about 42 titles on that, and we're putting out music all the time. And then the other side of that is for special event production services. So if you're putting on an event, you would call me to help out with that. What does that look like? Well, in some cases, maybe you just need like a sound man and a PA system. Well, okay, I'll do that. Well, maybe you need lights. Well, I do that. Maybe you need some fog. Well, okay, I'll do that. Maybe you need some security. I can do that. Maybe you need some fencing and portalettes and toilets and ticketing and a bunch of marketing. I do that too. Maybe need some crews, maybe need some talent booking and some themes for kind of do that. I do it all. So anything related to special events, we do. I mean, if you need some, people do bars, we'll do that. Need some food, we'll find you a bunch of food vendors. You need 40 or 50 art vendors to show up, not a problem. We do all that. So that's the other side of it. So it's big events, little events, crazy events. So it's that business is a little wacky, but it's pretty fun too.
So if someone wanted to hear your music, where could they find out about it? We've got some stuff up on the screen here. We've got your production company, Peterson Entertainment, and then we've got your Facebook um, account there. But where could they find you? Where would you typically be? Maybe on a Friday or Saturday night playing? Would there be somewhere you'd be, or is there a schedule somewhere we could see?
Yes, you can go to noahpeterson.com and see my schedule. I also post all of my dates on my Facebook profiles. That's for sure. You can find me on Bands in Town, Songkick, pretty much anywhere that has music listings, you can find me. You can also find me every Sunday at the Dodging Duck in Bernie, noon to 3. I'm there with my jazz trio, and it's an all-veteran band usually. I got Sergeant First Class Juan Acosta, U.S. Army. He's an Army bassist right now, and I got an 82-year-old former U.S. Marine, Larry Natwick, just killing it on the keys. So, yeah, absolutely, hoorah, man! That guy, and he's wicked funny too. He's so funny you can't give him a mic because it's a little dangerous. Because he's 82, he doesn't care anymore. He'll say anything, and
No
so
filter.
oh well, no, he's got a filter. He just chooses not to, which makes it even funnier sometimes. So we're there every Sunday, noon to 3. It's a jazz brunch. It's free. It's a great place. They brew their own beer. They got some good Texas food there for sure. Thursday nights, I'm at the Fairmont Rooftop Oyster Bar in downtown San Antonio. So if you want the best oysters in San Antonio, Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. I'm there two nights a month. I'm there with Ricky Hernandez, who is a gifted and beautiful keyboardist. And 2 nights a month I'm there with Larry, and it's just two jarheads throwing down pretty hard. Ricky will do a little different stuff. Ricky has some unusual skill sets, so we like to take advantage of the other things Ricky brings to the table. But it's Thursdays and Sundays, San Antonio. We got it.
All right, perfect. And I did forget to tell the audience, if you want to call in, there's the phone lines are open, or you can comment in the chat if you want to send a message to either one of us and ask some questions of Noah. But I forgot to say, 2 Texans in the house, because I'm from Texas too, not born and raised, but I currently reside there. And as you heard, Noah was born or was raised in Montana, and then got to Texas as quick as he can. That's at least that's what they say. I don't know if it's right or not, but that's what they say.
It took us a while. Took us a while to figure it out sometimes.
Right, that's what they say. So, they're always commenting, that there's a bunch of people coming in, and you have to embrace the culture, and you always have to say, well, I got here as quick as I could. So that's just the line I tell everybody now, is just like, yeah, I'm not a Texan, but I got here as quick as I could.
Yeah, and the thing I like about it is as much as there's a unique fabric throughout the state, every city has its own particular personality and vibe, as you said earlier.
Yeah, it does, because Fort Worth has a cowboy vibe. Dallas has a let's get it on vibe. San Antonio's got a wicked culture, like it's got its own really unique.
It's party town.
I don't know what I want to. Yeah, it's a party town, but it's got a lot of culture too, because the Alamo's there, and like some really historic sites are there. So it's got a really good mix of old and new.
Yeah, that's perfectly said.
So we're going to play another video here in a couple of minutes, but I wanted you to kind of talk us through it. It's called The Kitchen Sink. And so just kind of give us some backstory on that, if you don't mind.
All right. So this is one that I pulled out of the vault, right? So I'd actually recorded this one, I don't know, maybe even a decade ago. And I was just kind of working with this one dude, and we spent a lot of time in the studio knocking this out. So when you hear this, and this is what I call a soul jazz banger, right? This thing is just going to punch you in the face. And it's just 2 dudes. It's just 2 dudes. I promise you, every horn you hear in there is nothing but me and my saxophone. There's no trumpets. There's no trombones. There's nothing else. It's just my alto sax. Now, I've put some pedals on it, and we did some studio magic on some things for sure. But, this to me was an inspirational thing that kind of came from all those Guy Ritchie movies, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Ocean's 11 kind of stuff. Just these big, greasy, raw, funky, in-your-face kind of attitude jams. I love all that 70s stuff. I love that disco guitar. I love those groovy bass lines. And I love big, crushing horn sections where it's just pound, 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 pound. So I call it Kitchen Sink because we threw everything in there except the kitchen sink. As far as the video went, again, it's tough to make a good video without having money. So I rely heavily on stock footage. And I try to get stuff that I think is emblematic of the song a little bit. So this stuff, I love dance. I love modern dance, and I really love hip hop dance. I don't care if it's the slow flow. I don't care if it's the crunk. I don't care if it's the hip hop stuff. You'll see a fair amount of my videos have modern hip hop style influence dancing. And this one is no exception. There's some great segments of people just getting down on this stuff. So had a lot of fun
All
making the
right.
video. Love this, and I love the tune. It's a banger.
Well, let's hear it. So we're going to go to a quick commercial. We're going to hear The Kitchen Sink by Noah Peterson.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I have a special guest who's a Marine veteran, Noah Peterson, and we're hearing his awesome music. So hopefully you joined us for his song Kitchen Sink, and the one before that. Hopefully you've stayed tuned for the whole show and you've heard that as well. But we're on MBR, where veterans have a voice, and we are going to continue talking with Noah. You said, did you tell me you had been in like 19 countries playing music, or was it more than that?
No, what I said is I had mainstream FM broadcast in 14 countries.
Okay. But how many countries have you played in? I'm curious.
Well, if you mean have I been hired to play in one, but you know, right? But you know, you go to France, you're hanging out at the jazz club, you're meeting the guy, you're talking to him a little bit. He's like, "Oh, you're a U.S. jazz guy. You should play my horn." And I'm like, "Oh, man, you guys are doing great." He's like, No, right? So yeah, I mean, when you go out and a couple, because once they find out you're a U.S. musician, they want to play with you, and it's like, well, and that's fun, but it's not a gig, right? It's just you're just jamming with guys. It's their gig, but you're just sitting in, which is a common thing.
I still think that counts. I think it
All
counts.
right, so 5.
Okay, well, that's perfect. So you said that you like to play what the most? Like, what type of music is your favorite to play? I know you're a jazz musician. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, is there a particular you
Soul
write
jazz.
a lot of your own?
Soul jazz. I
Huh?
like soul jazz. I like soul jazz. So
Okay,
ideally for
soul jazz.
me, it'd be drums, congas, organ, bass. Well, maybe bass, maybe the organ kicks it on the left hand, guitar, and like 2 or 3 horns. Like, and just sitting back, just grinding out funky, groovy, just down home bluesy stuff, right? You know, Stanley Turrentine stuff, Grant Green kind of stuff, just all that stuff that's just totally pocket faced and just big long giant solos and some good fat lines that kind of come in, get the crowd riled up, just just kind of punches that groove. That's what I love the most. But
That
it's
sounds
all
great.
good.
So have you played with anybody that like you're just like, oh wow, they've asked me to play with them? Like, has there been somebody that you had like a fan guy moment about, like you got to play with or that you were introduced to?
Um Boy, that's a hard one. There's different kinds of musicians out there, right? There's mu- there's people who are huge music fans, right? And a lot of musicians are big music fans. You have some guys who are artists and they don't really care about anything but themselves. And then you have like band leaders, and then you have sidemen. And very few sidemen are band leaders. A lot of band leaders are and can be sidemen, but there are specific skills that you have to be able to do. So depending on what you're doing and how you're working, really exposes or limits who you get to jam with. So in terms of actually playing, I got to I got to back up the Temptations once. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
Um, I was on the Bob Hope 90th anniversary special for NBC when they did that. That was very cool. In the Marine Corps, we did a
That is
session with a Disney composer. One of my music professors is a guy who's done hundreds and hundreds of film scores. So I mean, you meet people in different ways doing different things, but mostly I've been a band leader all my life, and so as such, when you're talking with other players, they're like, "Oh, who have you played with?" And it's like the first thing in my mind goes, "Oh, right," because I don't play with people; people play with me because I'm the band leader, right? I don't like no one's calling me and saying, "Hey, would you want to come play with me?" I'm calling people like, "Hey, are you available on this date? Can you do these things?" And so when I hear that question, I think, okay, who are the amazing people that I've got to hire? And like some of the biggest names would be like Nancy King, who's probably Elvis Costello called her the greatest living jazz singer on the planet. And
I love
that's
Elvis Costello.
yeah, and Nancy King is no joke. She's done a Ron Carter album. She's on some Best Friends for Singers. She's done some Fred Hirsch stuff out of New York. So I mean, she was on the Playboy vocal circuit for in the 50s for years, up and down with Sonny King on the West Coast. I mean, so she is boy, she's about as big as you can get and have never heard of. There's other very niche people like John Stoll, who's an extraordinary guitarist who's kind of one of my personal highlights, having played with him. He's a boy, he just thinks about everything differently. But again, unless you're into a very specific thing, you're not going to have heard of these types of things. So, I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of names to drop, but I can say my good buddy Ben the sax guy. I'd say last year he was at Madison Square Garden playing with oh my god, I can't think of that guy. Dave Matthews. He was playing with the Dave Matthews band at Madison Square Garden. So
Hey,
yeah.
wow.
But
That's cool.
that doesn't surprise me. He's a really interesting and fun guy. So I don't. You just you meet you're one step away. That's the thing about this
Right.
business. Everyone says you're 7 steps away from Kevin Bacon. In the music business, you're one step away.
Right. That's awesome.
I mean, I
Well,
got to hang
so
out with Billy Gibbons a little bit once. I got to hang out with Steve Earle a little bit. I got to do a great radio interview with Bernard Purdy, the guy who invented the Boogaloo beat. Bernard's one of the most slamming soul jazz drummers of all time. So, I mean, I've definitely met some heroes. That's fun.
yeah, that is fun. So you said you have a couple of different bands you play with?
Right now, I only have one band I play with. I have some recording projects that I work on. So
Okay.
I'd say kind of the biggest one of that is with a partner of mine by the name of Zach Spicer, and this is a band called Omni. It's with dots O dot M dot and dot I, and we started off kind of doing reggae and electro funk, but it's pretty much all dub right now. So if you've listened to dub in the past 40 or 50 years, we make gangster good dub. It's so crazy how good it is. Like I listen to stuff and then I listen to us and then it's just like there's no difference. And we did it like 10 years before these guys did. And it's like
Wow.
it's a little frustrating sometimes, but it's and we still crank it out. Like we got one we just put out called there are these huge, ridiculous science fiction space reggae epics. So they have stories, we have ideas. Once in a while, we'll put out videos that are actually follow the storyline sometimes. So I mean that's a whole adventure. So that those are the kinds of things I do.
That's awesome. I heard some of that actually. I was playing some music last night and I heard some and I was like, well, this is crazy music. It's awesome. I
Yeah.
was really impressed. I was really impressed. Um, so I was gonna ask you, you said you had a new album coming out or a new collection of songs. I need to get the wording right, but you said new collection of songs. When's that gonna come out?
I don't have an exact date for it. It's going to be in the fall because this one I haven't sent out what I call like a major release in a long time. So what I call a major release is, I'm going to do the jewel cases. I'm going to send it off to radio stations. I'm going to buy some ads. I'm going to try to actually make a little bit of noise with it. I frequently release stuff just digitally and just kind of put it out quietly and don't do too much with it. And just people who like my music, they'll stream it and it'll be fun. But this one, I'm trying to do more. So it's going to be an actual album. It's going to be in the fall because so many of the radio stations are independently controlled when it comes to jazz, which means a lot of them are college radio. Just a hint for any musicians out there: never send college radio releases in the summer. Nobody's there, so you have to wait till
Right.
fall.
True.
So it'll be sometime in the
True
fall.
story. Okay, well, we'll be looking forward to that. So, how many releases have you done before? Because you said you've written a whole bunch of your own songs and you've
Mhm.
put them out there. How many would you say that you have out there, and how many collections have like? Do you have a CD, or do you have collections of music that somebody could download for a
Yeah.
fee? I mean, how typically do they get your music?
Well, these days, just because the music culture has changed. It used to be, back when you and I were growing up, everyone had a collection, right? And you had your vinyl
Yes,
collection, or your 8-track collection, or your cassette collection, and then your CD collection. Then you had your MP3 collection. And
yes,
nowadays, people don't have collections, right? So, for the most part, most people consume everything: Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever your favorite, YouTube, all these things are out there. So I'm on all of them. You, of course, can download these things from CD Baby. You can download them from my website. You can download them from Apple Music as well, Amazon Music, of course. So it's on all of those things. I have a fair amount of albums, and I have a ton and ever increasing amount of singles. And I have projects that are my projects that I collaborate with, and other things. I have if you're into poetry, I have 4 releases out with a poet called Emmett Wheatfall, and some of that stuff is absolutely just fantastic, in your face jazz and poetry. It's Some of it is hauntingly beautiful. Some of it, it's the second generation of "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." I mean, it's all up in it. And Emmett's not afraid of anything. He's got $1 million voice, and I put together some slamming bands behind it. If you're into electronic music, I've got a number of electronic singles that I do. If you're really into the weird stuff and into noise and stuff, I have an entire side project called Widespread Noise that I do everything from just lovely, lush, ambient, relaxing, calm stuff to stuff that pushes the bounds of what we call harsh noise, which is not for everyone.
Right. So we have to go to commercial here pretty quick, but I did want to ask, would you be interested in playing anything live? I know you said your saxophone was in the shop, but do you have a backup? And would you want to play anything when we come back?
No, I'm not prepared for that. I do have an instrument with me, but I don't have it's an electronic instrument, so I can't play it out into the atmosphere. It's strictly through the
Got it.
headphones, right?
Yeah, no
But
problem. All right, well, we're going to go to break and we'll be back. So join us as we wrap up our talk with Noah Peterson.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Make it clear that the views expressed by our host are not considered the official stance of NBR views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and we have a special guest in studio. We have Noah Peterson, who is a jazz musician and who is a man after my own heart, because I love the saxophone, and I don't think there's a better instrument personally. Not to say that I haven't played other instruments, but I always go back to saxophone because I don't think bassoon counts. And I only played it because the band director couldn't get anybody else to play it. And then so I didn't have to compete for a chair in music, in band. So I was like, okay, as long as I'm not competing for a chair and I make the director happy, life's good.
all right, there's this crazy bassoonist out of San Francisco. He plays with this band called Funky Cubonics. Amazing. Dude's amazing.
Really?
Oh my God. It's so good. Yeah, it's so good. Sorry.
Well, and I didn't have to have the bassoon and marching band either. So,
Yeah.
you know. And it wasn't as heavy as like the baritone sax or the tenor.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was like, I'll play the bassoon because it's pretty light. So I wanted to ask, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up? Anything about military service, about your business, about your music? Because I know we touched on a little bit of everything, but I think I probably missed a thing or two. So I wanted to ask you if there's anything you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, just because this is a military program, you don't run into a lot of service members in the music business. Now, that's not to say that there's not a fair amount of folks that are playing gigs. Yeah, I was in the Army and I play guitar in a rock band, right? I mean, that's a very common thing. But to really be in the biz and kind of work in the biz, it's very, very rare to run into these guys. And it's as such, there's not that family feel. There's not that community that you get, because when you get into a place like this where, hey, we're all a bunch of veterans. We all did our thing, whether whether you're like me and you're a pogue and you're a one and done, or whether you're like you and career and you do it 33 years, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. We've got this thing that nobody else can ever be a part of, and in no special way. And, if you're Army, it's one thing. If you're Marines, it's something else. Navy, something else. And, there's a little crossover depending on what the job is. But it's like you get this camaraderie that's not like anything else. Now, when you go to the music business, you don't really talk about it because it's just, the culture isn't quite there for that. It's it's a different way of kind of doing things and looking at things, and a different way of relating to your fellow human. So one thing I found was the military preparation for being a musician was extraordinary. When I think what the military best trains people for is like entrepreneurship, the Marine Corps especially, or being able to go into a very niche part of work where, no one's going to give it to you. You got to get it. You got to get it for yourself. You got to get it for your bandmates. You got to get it for your brand. You got to get it for everything. And there's no excuses. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's just doing it or not doing it. And there's no help.
Right.
And there's no, and right. So it's, I found the military to be what a great place to toughen you up, get that mindset right, and just kind of, give you a few extra, innovative skills for acquiring the knowledge and, whatever else, the tactics for trying to make a better life for yourself and making good decisions about, what it is you really want, what it is, what is important to you, because I found, coming out of the Marine Corps at 23, it's like I thought very differently about life than going in at 18, it's like, and so these types of things, they affect your changes through your life. Like I don't think about money the way my friends think about money. I don't think about the meaning of how I've spent my life the way my friends think about those types of things because of the military.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like your reflection because, it is a sense of community and it really does teach you skill sets you don't learn anywhere else and experiences you don't have anywhere else. So, for me, I wouldn't be where I am today without my service. I wouldn't. There's just no way I would be there. So I know that what the Army taught me was what I needed to know to be the better person and to persevere in spite of myself and in spite of others, because does teach you is fortitude and not to take no for an answer. Like there's another way. If it doesn't work this way, then we regroup and we figure it out. We got plan B and plan C and plan D and plan E all rolled into this one plan because we're not gonna be told no, and we're gonna make it happen one way or the other. I mean, like that's the way you're taught. That's the way it's ingrained in us, is just to keep going. Doesn't matter if it's a sidestep, a couple of paces or a backward step and then a side step and then a forward step. Regardless of how we get there, we're going to get there because we have a goal in mind and a mission. And so we really, MBR is that mission too for us veterans that need a voice and want to put something out that's going to be helpful to others. And so it's like, it's putting a focus on what we do and kind of steering us in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And I think I was gonna say, I think it helps with assessing teammates too, right? Because we've all had good teammates, we've all had bad teammates, and we know what those are, and we know, in certain situations you're stuck. It's like, this guy's the teammate no matter what, like him or not. It's like, and you're gonna have to pick up his slack, or they're gonna pick up a little yours, or so you learn how to deal with difficult people in difficult situations. And then when you come out of it, right? And then what you find is, okay, well, finding a good teammate is a rare thing, right?
Right.
In the civilian world. And then it's mostly just, how do I escape this bad teammate? Right? So, I think the skills just endlessly carry over.
I think so too. I've always said at a job, they're like, well, how do you deal with people that, are disruptive in the workplace or that you don't get along with or that are being difficult? And I said, you know what? I don't really have to like you to work with you. I'd like to like you, but I don't have to. There's a mission we're all set to, and it doesn't matter whether you're on board with that or not. I'm on board, and we're going to all get there together, regardless of who you are or what you're doing. We're all going to get there. So even if I don't like you, we're still going to make it happen. It doesn't matter because, at the end of the day, it's about the goal and where we're going.
Yeah.
That's what
I have this,
said.
One of my longtime friends, but back then he was one of my NCOs. Was Corporal Saltarello, fine upstate New York Italian fellow, and he's giving me a counseling session, and I'm not liking what I'm hearing, and you can see it on my face. And he says, "Oh, you don't like that?" I'm like, "No, I don't." He goes, "Did I hurt your feelings?" And just before I could say yes, he just jumps in my face with, the response you would expect to hear in the Marine Corps, right? And my mouth drops open, and I burst out laughing, and he bursts out laughing, and the whole thing got a lot of perspective at that point. It was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna shut up and go do this now. And it was like, yeah, because your feelings, right? It's not about your feelings.
Right.
Just why are you making this unpleasant for everyone? Just shut up and go do it. And it was like, great life lesson, Salt. That's
Right.
we still laugh about that to this day.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm trying to think what other questions we haven't gone through. So you said that you play almost every night of the week, right? Like you're always somewhere in some club playing or bar or restaurant. And so all of your dates are on your website and we can just go to your calendar and sync those up.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
You know,
And
and,
you told me about a veterans memorial you did, and I wanted to hear about that, if you don't mind.
yeah. So, well, that's one of the things that I do. So we actually, I'm part of the production team that puts on San Antonio Veterans Day. So we've done it since they've started it, which, for military cities, USA, which San Antonio is, little
Yes.
late to the game for the Veterans Day celebrations, but it was really cool to do it. And I know the mayor from several different angles, and so we always bump into each other, especially at these things. And when he sees me, he likes seeing me because he knows I don't want to get him on camera. I'm not going to ask him a tough question. I'm like, hey, Ron, nice to see you again. How you doing? It's like, oh, I'm like, yeah. I read the news. And so here we are doing this, and politically, he and I are not in the same camp, but he's a good man and he's an honest man, which goes a long way. And I still remember his comments. He's like, I don't care where you're at. It's like, we're going to have the biggest, baddest, best Veterans Day celebration in America. We're going to do all these things and it's like, if you ever need anything, you just give me a call, let me know how it's done and this and that and the other. And, the rest of the city council is just rallied around it so much, and the different liaisons, and U.S. Army North is tremendously supportive. And it's such a great community that puts all these things together. So that particular event's been a lot of fun, although the weather has been against us. It just seems to rain every year, or be cold or something. So we're gonna bang. Hopefully this is the year. But as we do these things, I'm known in town for being the veteran musician guy, and I know a lot of veteran bandsmen. And again, it's a military city, so of course there's more than your usual average number of folks doing that. So one of these clients at a wonderful location here in San Antonio called the Pearl, restaurants, fine hotels, all kinds of stuff. They're like, hey, we got kicked over to you. We understand you're the veteran music guy. I'm like, I am. They're like, well, we want to put together this celebration. So I put together 3 veteran bands for the whole Memorial Day celebration. I had a couple of Marine combat vets on Friday, had the Air Force, couple of career guys on Sunday. One guy's been the Air Force Entertainer of the Year a couple of years, Robert Carter, unbelievable singer. And I had my quartet with 3 veterans in it on Memorial Day. And that's kind of how I came to you, is I put one of those videos up, and Joey from MBR saw it and put us together.
That's awesome. Well, are you going to be doing it this year?
We'll see. I think the word right now is yes. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of fundraising that has to be done yet by the city and by the host organization. But the word right now is yes, we are a go.
Well, if you're going to put it on, I'm coming. So save me a spot.
Oh,
All
it's
right.
a party,
We're
man.
going to have to wrap up.
Gary Sinise Foundation gets involved. It's great.
It sounds awesome. Well, we're going to have to wrap up our talk. I wanted to thank Noah Peterson for being with us tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more music. And I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for your music, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
That's the show for today, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. And remember, you can listen to us again and again. The podcast of this radio show is available right after we go off the air tonight, anywhere that you can get your podcast episodes. And thanks for joining us today. I'd like to take a moment to talk about something close to my heart. Military Broadcast Radio is doing incredible work to support our veterans and bring their voices to the world. They rely on your generous donations and your dedicated volunteer hours to make it happen. I encourage you to consider supporting NBR in any way, form that you can. Use this QR code that's attached to the picture, or you can go to our website at mbradio.us. That's Mike Bravo Radio.us to learn more about how you can donate or volunteer even just an hour a week from your home. Help make a difference in the lives of our veterans, because once again, we're all here for you and not for us. We're giving a veteran